Okay, so today we're doing a CV axle, aka CV joint, half shaft on a 2004 Nissan Maxima. So I'm a little halfway through it. I should have started the video earlier, but the new one's almost in. But basically, what you got to do, I haven't found a video on this exact year. It's been a little differently, but I use kind of the same concept. So, you know, you got right here, this is the CV axle going all the way up in there. If we come up underneath, it's a little hard to see here. There's the rest of the shaft, and that shaft goes into the transmission or gearbox or whatever you want to call it, and it's going all the way back. Sorry for the lighting here, I'm trying my best. Going back that way, and this is on the passenger side. It's a little different on the driver's side. And then you know, that shaft goes back, and then here's the other side of it right there. So to get it off, I had to first take the tire off, which is kind of standard, and then take the nut off that goes on this shaft, which is the end of the CV or half shaft. So there's a cotter key and a 32 millimeter nut that goes on here. Sorry, amateur camera work and whatnot, but so the nut goes on here, which is really kind of a fine thread. I don't know. I think you get the point. The nut goes on here. After the nut's all the way in, you see there's a hole in the shaft right here. Try to get you an angle on it. Yeah, there you go. You see the hole through it? That's where the cotter key goes through. So the cotter key goes right through here after the nut's on. Keeps the nut from spinning off. So starting off, you pull off the tire, you pull off the nut that's on, or you pull off the cotter key, then the nut, and then once that's done, once you get everything pulled off, then this shaft should be able to be pushed through. You can see you can pull it out and push it in. It's kind of in a state of flux, if you will. But you can't get the whole shaft out. So what I had to do is go underneath here. This bushing and swivel, or whatever you want to call it, goes in this slot. So it goes, you know, up into here. That's on the front half of the lower control arm. On the rear half, same control arm, there's this that goes up to here. On this side, these two bolts, they go right up in there. So I got it moved back a little bit, but this should move forward and bolt up to here, and there's a bolt here and a bolt here. So I had to loosen those, take them all the way out, and then take this bolt out of this hole, and then slide the whole thing out, which, you see that wheel's straight, and this one's all cattywampus. So on top of that, try to spin this disc for you. Okay. You have to take this connecting rod end, or tie rod end, off. So you got steering gearbox back there, got this tie rod end. This normally slides down into that, and then an 18mm nut goes on the end of that with another cotter key. So of course you gotta pound on this, not any of this. Don't pickle fork it if you want to save the boot on this. But once you pound on this a little bit, it should pop it loose, and you pop this out, take it loose. Now this tire or hub or whatever you want to call it is loose from the other side. So you get that all loose, and then let me get an extra hand here. So then you're able to turn this separate from the other side, and you can pull this loose from its position where it normally sits. So I'm going to try to kind of reassemble this one-handed here. So you see this here has got to go up into this socket, which requires me to pull up and out and kind of turn this. But we'll see if we can kind of get it on camera here. So this part has a little rubber washer sort of thing that needs to go back on, of course. But you got to pull it back and then push it up. Might need to set the camera down a little bit. Hang on a second. Like I said, I haven't done this before, so I had a little trouble knowing how to do it. But I'm going to try to get what and how to. So, kind of gives you an idea of it. So this has to go up and back, and see how it kind of pops right in there. And it's got to go in a little further. Of course, you have splines on this end of CV joint and that end of the CV joint, and on that end there's, hang on, let me get my hands clean a little bit. There's 3 bolts that hold the CV into the transmission, transfer case, whatnot. This is going to be a little hard to see, but you see that bolt down there on the shiny spot right there. There's one there. There's one right here, and then there's one down on the bottom there, which you can also see from the bottom right here. So I've already got those in. I've already taken the old one out, but there's those 3 bolts that pull it inward and keep it engaged right here, you know, into transfer case / transmission, whatever you want to call it. So taking it out is obviously just the opposite of what I'm doing. And as you're sticking that CV shaft in, you got to remember to try to line up those splines first, because if you don't, they end up trying to tear up the seal. So you gotta go just nice and easy, relax yourself, and go in. And then right up in here, there's another set of splines. I'll try to show you that. See, these splines on this shaft go into a spline on the hub right here. You see those? So it's the same thing on the transmission side of it. You just try to keep all of those going in all nice and easy. So on this end, I pulled it out to get this in, and now this isn't in. So you got to push up and rotate and pull this back inward, kind of in a solitary motion if you can. Of course, this was kind of finicky. So you pull in. If it doesn't line up, you got to twist on it. Pull it in, see how now it's locking up with the disc. A little more like that, and this CV shaft goes in and out. You can see that. If I pull out and go in, you just want to kind of take your time, pull this shaft out enough to kind of get it where it needs to be, and then make sure you line up the other half of it, which is the other half of this lower control arm, which I already showed you. There's this half that I just put in, and then there's this half back here. I'm sorry the lighting's not great, but see how there's these two bolts here? This is pretty much lined up right here. But I also got to remember to put this tie rod end back where it belongs in this hole right here. So it all kind of has to go together, all together. I'm gonna leave this out for the time being because I want to replace this belt, which is there's the AC compressor, the alternator, an idler / tensioner pulley, and then the crank pulley. So you can see it's all cracky all up in here. So I want to replace this belt, and I want to leave this all able to be moved so I can kind of get it in here and do it a little more easily. You may not have that belt issue, so you'd basically continue. But as you can see, I'm grabbing on right here under the CV shaft, and I'm pulling in and out, and you can see that shaft coming in and out. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think I've covered just about everything that we had. So 3 bolts that hold this on to this plate back here, and this shaft, it's a little hard to see, all the way back there. Basically, this shaft is connected to all the rest of this, and that's what's different from the driver's side. The driver's side doesn't have that extra shaft, because if you look at it, this is where both shafts hooked in, and it's off center from the vehicle. So they both hook here. So on the driver's side, same sort of looking thing, but see how that transfer case or transmission, whatever you want to call it, is right there. So there's not that extra like 12 inches of shaft. So minus the connector, the tie rod end, which needs a new one because it's fucked up. But the guy I'm doing this for doesn't have the money to replace it, so I'm gonna leave that, even though against better judgment, should replace it if it's doing this. It should be tight, and you can move it, but it's really tight. So minus that, I'm gonna try to hook the rest of this together. So I gotta pull this CV shaft back out and put that nut on it. I can't really push it in too much, because it looks like just a little bit. See, that hole could line up a little more, but so it needs to go in just a little bit more. But I don't know, I think that kind of covers it. I started a little late on the video. Didn't really think of it till I was to the point where I'm putting the new one in, that maybe a few people would like to know how to do it entirely. Of course, you got your ABS, sensor stuff going on here. This is the ring, and I had a difference too on whether it was a 4-speed automatic or a 5-speed automatic, which this one is the 5-speed. It's the more common one. But these little gear teeth, as the tire spins, it's a little hard to see. There's that kind of like magnet right in the center here. and that senses those little teeth going by, and it can tell whether each side is spinning different from each other. So here's a new one. It's looking pretty good so far. I'm going to try to show you the old one, which is quite different due to the wear that it's accumulated over the years. This thing's got like 190,000 on it. So here's the old one. And the difference between the driver's side and the passenger side is the passenger side has this extra, and the driver's side just is this part. But you can see right here, this boot used to hook all the way up to there, and it's ripped. Not only that, it's a little hard to show you here. There's slack. When you turn this half doesn't turn for, I don't know, about 1/8 of a turn. So you get 1/8 of a turn here, and then this starts turning. Which the whole problem with this car is that when you're at high speed, it would shake and kind of rumble, and then when you put like a reverse to drive, you'd hear this loud kind of like clank, similar to like a U-joint on a different car. So I hope that explains it for you guys. I mean, I should have thought about it sooner, got on this video a little more diligently, but that's about it. So I hope this helps you out a little bit on your adventures. All right, well, peace out.